everybody, and welcome to the Coaching Uncovered podcast, the podcast where coaches come to talk about coaching. My name is Brent Davis, and I am the host of the podcast, and we are fortunate enough today to have Canadian PGA Professional Jason Helman on the line. Welcome, Jason. Thanks for coming and having a chat to me.
Hey, Brent. Great to be on. Looking forward to it.
We're going to have some great chat today. I think you'll be a really interesting conversation, so it's going to be a whole heap of fun. So tell everyone out there about yourself.
Well, this is my 27th year as a coach, coaching golf. It's been a fun ride, let me tell you. So I started in the golf business when I was 21. Yeah, 21. I went away to PGM college in the U.S. and turned professional when I was 23. So it's been fun. Let me take you back to my junior years. This is sort of how I got into golf. I played all
27.
the other, yeah. So wow, yeah, 27. Is it 27?
27 long years ago.
Yeah, 27 long years ago. Well, that's when I turned professional. But when I was junior golfer, I had played all the other sports growing up. I played football. I played hockey at a high level. Played all the way to junior. And I played football as a quarterback, in which I was recruited, like American football, so or Canadian, I guess we're going to call it. But so I was recruited to go to a few universities here as a quarterback, and thought a little bit better of it. I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'9". I was 185 at that time, and I was pretty quick. I could run away from the big guys, but I thought, you know what? I'm probably going to get beat up pretty bad when I get to the higher levels. These guys are like 300, 360, and I'm 185. Like, you better be able to run like the wind. So I said,
scary.
I think I want to maybe pursue golf because I'll have, all my faculties and I won't be as broken. Unfortunately, I did get broken playing hockey. So we've got lots of injuries to my shoulders and knee and stuff like that. But that is what it is. When it comes to sports, you're going to get injured if you're playing sort of elite sports. So I'm in a non-contact
playing contact sports.
Yeah, I'm in a non-contact sport now, which is great. And I've been limited with injuries, so that's also good. But so I went away to college in the U.S. And did a PGM course down there for 3 years, and it's been ever since. I remember actually in college writing down your 1-year goal, your 5-year goal, and your 10-year goal, and I still think I have those somewhere in my notes.
Right.
But as I mentioned to you before, and maybe some other conversations we've had, now it's pretty much a 30-year goal. So where are you going to be at the end of 30 years?
Yeah.
And I only have 3 more years to go, so to get to there. So we'll see where I'm going to be at the end of that 30th year. But it's been a career of some accomplishments, and we'll talk about those as we go along. But my dad never taught me how to golf because back in the day, he would always go to these events and they would always have some beers afterwards. And I was, I think, 8, 9, 10, and I wanted to go and I wanted to caddy. And he said, "No, you can't go. You can't go. It's, sort of a boys thing." I was like, So when I was a junior, I worked at a resort that had a golf course beside it, and they owned the course too. So I learned how to play golf. My first round of golf, my buddy Steve took me out, and I shot 92. So legit penalties.
Wow, that's impressive first game.
Legit penalties, everything. So it was fun, and it was a 9-hole course. We just went around twice, and so that was fun. And then the year after that, I played every single day, and by the end of the year, my best round was 67.
Well, that kind of heads into a question straight away. So if you're shooting those kind of scores at 15 years of age, what consideration did you give to playing tour golf?
I worked my way up, actually, and by the time I was 18, 19, I played in a few Canadian Tour at that time qualifiers. Actually, more than a few, probably about 7 or 8. So it was trying to compete at that high level and this is before I went to college. So
Yep.
it was fun, and all the guys that were out there at that particular time were like Chris DeMarco, Mike Weir, Steve Stricker. They were all playing Canadian Tour, so it was fun to watch those guys, and some other other guys out of college were qualifying at the time too, because they didn't have any status, and it was a lot different back then than it is now.
Yeah.
Definitely not as structured back then as it is right now with Mackenzie Tour, sponsor and all that kind of stuff. But it was fun, had a couple of close qualifications and in the events, it was 72 and you're still not getting in. It was still good golf way back then. So, I'm playing with the, sort of inferior equipment as to what we have today, but,
yeah, certainly harder game to play with those with the blade clubs and the spinny ball compared to what we use these days.
Yeah, it was Balata ball and back then, so Tour 100s. That was the hot ball.
But you could probably get 6 or 7 holes out of them before they go out of shape.
Yeah,
that was always expensive round.
For sure.
That's always part of fun. So you've been coaching for 27 years, as you said. So that's an awful long time out there. I'm coming up to my 20th year, so but it's fun to be out there. So tell me about some of the awards you've won. You've been PGA Canada Teacher of the Year.
I have won the PGA of Canada Professional Development Award and the PGA of Canada Teacher of the Year Award in 2010. The other one was 2016. I had with the Teacher of the Year. That time I was doing some web.com stuff, and then I branched off into the LPGA Tour and worked with 3 or 4 players out there, and then sort of got away from it and moved back to the club, and I've been at my club for 13 years. Yeah, this would be the 14th year coming up. So lots of club level golf and moving into juniors all along the way. So it's been interesting. A lot different than being, going to 6 to 10 events a year kind of a thing, driving around or flying to different places. And now we have the ability to work with players online. So if you have an idea of, I'm still working with a couple of players. So, we can just remotely communicate, and it's very simple to, if you know their swing and know their movement patterns, to help them out without physically being there all the time. So that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does. It's certainly a different world these days, being able to send swings online and coach online and do it that way these days. It's certainly a heaps easier way to go about coaching those kind of players.
Definitely. Yeah, some players need the hands-on sort of, hey, I need you to, what does that space feel like, or I don't really say position, but what does it feel to move like that? And then you'd obviously need to be present to do that, but it's all relative to how many times you can get together a year to do that.
Now, you spoke a bit about your early sporting days and playing different sports, playing football, playing hockey, and I do know that you do say that early coaching has had a bit of an impact on you as a coach and as a person. So talk me through that. How did you find those early coaching experiences have influenced you as a coach and as a person?
So I'll start off in football, because that was sort of my high school, formidable years, and I had really, really good coaches and really good teachers in school. I went to a school of 800 kids, and it was in the country, not country, but like we're 45 minutes away from the biggest city that had 300,000 people. So it was on the level of the coaches were all by first name, so it wasn't Mr. So-and-so. It was, hey, Gord, hey, Paul, hey, John, it was, we were on or Glenn or any of the, Lee, all the coaches were very personable. And that part made, I think, learning a lot easier. It was in a relaxed sort of environment, and it wasn't sort of like I always sort of refer to some things as drill sergeanty, or you got to do it like this, you got to do it like that. And if you don't do it like that, it's no good. So they would teach us, a lot of things. And it was just, I guess, the camaraderie and the relationships that we had with the coaches going back and forth and being able to talk to them openly was a big deal. And I think a lot of the kids gravitated towards that. And one of the reasons why some of our teams were so successful is that, it wasn't stuffy. It wasn't, they didn't talk down to us. They were like, I guess probably all the coaches, if I could put it in latent terms, they would think all of us were their sons. So that's kind of how they treated us, which was great. You could ask them a question and they weren't getting mad at you or anything like that kind of a thing. So that made a huge difference, I think, in the way that all the kids responded. And same thing for hockey. Like, I had some great hockey coaches, all the way to junior, and they were always, patting on the back. And I only had one sort of, bad experience with one coach, but that's a pretty good record, actually, when you consider all of the coaches that I had growing up. One bad experience in junior, but I also learned from that experience too. So it was interesting for sure. And they all sort of, I guess the other hockey coaches, kind of same thing. They take the same kind of approach. They pull you aside and say, hey, talk to you one-on-one. They wouldn't send you out in the group. And in golf, we don't really have that as much because it's an individual sport anyway. So we can, talk to our students one-on-one, maybe away from parents. So they can feel a little bit more comfortable.
Do you find, because golf is that singular sport, that you have to introduce that group type coaching more in golf than you did in other sports because of the fact that it is a single sport? So do you find you have to go a bit the other way?
Not really. To be honest, I'm in my area, or I'm in Toronto. There's 7 million people. A lot of the people that come to me are looking for the one-on-one. They're gearing away from any of the group coaching. So they prefer the one-on-one instruction because they've been in a group setting and not had the success that they'd hoped for.
Okay, yeah, that certainly makes sense. I was probably thinking more so down the kids line, thinking that maybe introducing that squad-based training or practice might be a good thing for a golf coach because they can possibly get a little bit too singular in how they go about it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I am getting the kids coming from the group coaching because they're not satisfied with some of the other coaching that they've had, and they feel that they're not getting better at the group level. So they're definitely gravitating towards one-on-one instruction. I do have a group coaching model to go by, the sort of level 1, level 2, and sort of a future stars program. But I think a lot of the parents just think it's a bit, it's just fun, which is fine. It depends on what they're looking for. So I'm getting a lot more of the competitive kids, and they're not really wanting their child or junior to go into the fun program to goof around kind of a thing. They're not interested in paying for that. So they'd rather they have goals, obviously. And even in the smaller junior levels, like the 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, it's getting more competitive because the universities are starting to look sooner. I remember seeing, a few 10-year-olds, committing verbally to universities in the States, which I think is kind of silly, but
wow,
who knows if they're going
to
be in the game in 6 years or 7 years. But
wow.
That's yeah. You've got Junior Golf Hub, you've got Junior Golf Scoreboard, you've got Junior Leaderboard, and all the coaches are following these kids as they grow up. Even as far, as young as 10, as I've heard. I've never heard anything younger, but 10, 11, 12, 13, they are following kids' progress to see.
It's crazy.
Because now it's worldwide, right? You got kids from Thailand, Malaysia, and China, and Australia and New Zealand that are looking at going to North American schools to get the scholarship, right? So, and some go and some don't go, but a lot more are going. So it's interesting to.
It was certainly. Yeah, it is. I said it was certainly a surprise to me. I hadn't had any sort of exposure to the college system in the US at all until I took the Taiwanese players when I was coaching in Taiwan over to the Junior Worlds at Torrey Pines, and just to see the college coaches just hanging around those kids and handing out cards all the time. It was just it was crazy. I just couldn't get over how big college sport was, and this is 2008, so I'm sure it's even bigger again now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's why I said they're looking even younger now at the 10-year-olds that are committing with their parents, verbally to go to, D1 major schools. Now it's few and far between.
Wow.
We're talking about 10-year-olds, but I mean, it's still, still 14, 15, 16. They are definitely gearing up and getting their teams ready well ahead of time in regards to, where they're at the junior golf level for sure.
So how does that tie into, and we've had this chat before about early specialization in golf and how bad it can be for certain people. So if you've got a kid that shows a bit of talent and he's got a college approaching him at 10, 12, 13, even 14, 15 years of age, and he's going to have to tend to want to specialize in golf all of a sudden, that can't be good for his long-term progress.
No. I encourage all of my athletes, all my junior players, to play more than one sport, and a lot of their parents follow suit. So a lot of them are playing soccer, they're doing swimming, they're not doing baseball, they're definitely not doing the contact sports that I played growing up. They're not. Some of them are playing hockey, but not a lot of them are playing. And the soccer's not too bad, injury wise, but they're not into football. I do coach a lot of Asian players, and they seem to, steer clear of some of those other, bigger contact sports. But some of them play hockey, and some of them are, like I said, doing the other sports. Some of them are doing tennis in the summertime as well. I actually lost a couple kids to the tennis. They went to the tennis and stayed there. I was like, oh man, you guys are so good.
Oh.
But they'll maybe they come back to it later. A lot of parents just want their kids introduced to golf for the business aspect, and they'll tell me that straight up, which is great. We don't want a scholarship. We just want them to know the rules, the etiquette, be able to play for when they graduate from university and enter the business world. And I'm like, oh, no problem. So their expectations are a little bit lower, which is great.
Yeah. Which is a good thing. If they have that clear cut pathway in their heads before they start, that certainly makes it easier as a coach for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, their parents have already decided where they're going to go to school and what jobs they're going to have. So they've already they're going to be architects or doctors or something along those lines, or they're going to be in business. But it's kind of interesting. So
yeah, for sure. Now your coaching's a little bit. Probably a bit more mainstream now than it was in the past, but you're more into a programs-based coaching sessions as opposed to individual private golf coaching lessons. It's certainly where golf coaching is going, I think. But how did you get started in that way of thinking in your coaching?
Well, I've been trying to help shift that paradigm for the last 13 or 14 years for sure. I remember a long time ago, I can say a long time ago because I'm in my 27th year, but one day I had 15 lessons in the day, and it was like a ridiculously long day. And I remember the last 3 lessons, I wasn't really there. I wasn't there mentally. I was there physically, but I wasn't really paying attention to the student at the time, as well as I should have been. And I wasn't charging an enormous amount of money, but I remember driving home going like, those last 3 lessons were crappy. So I called all 3 students back and said, why don't you come back for another session? Because I really don't think that I was, we had a good session. So, and they're like, oh no, I learned some stuff. And I'm like, that's okay. You know what? Just it just come back for another session anytime you want. So then, no charge. I don't really think I was present. So I never booked anybody. I never booked 15 sessions again, ever. And at that time I said,
Smart move.
I need to, because you're kind of looking at your watch in the last 3 lessons going like, is it time to go home yet? I've been here all day, baking in the sun, all that kind of stuff. Not trying to make excuses. I love being outside, but it just wasn't good. So I said, I can't really take someone's money and not be there presently, or not be there all the time mentally, just be there sort of physically. You're not really into the whole session. So you're not giving your all, so to speak. So I said, I'm never going to do that again, and I need to find a different route. So I charged a little bit more the following year and switched the programs up to more of a monthly base thing versus just sort of a 3-pack or a 5-pack thing, which is what, Golf Professional did typically. And that was sort of the package that everybody did, or some people did 10. But it didn't really seem to work. So I said, we'd do 2 hours a month, or 4 half-hour sessions in a month would be great. And they went, oh yeah, that's great. I can do that. I'll come every Saturday, or every Friday night, or every Tuesday night, or whatever it was. So I sort of migrated into that, and then when I had my own academy at that particular time, and then it closed down, and the land was just too valuable, and like everything, it's kind of happening everywhere, I guess. Some of the golf courses are closing because the land is too valuable, and they're building things. So that is what it is. And then I moved on to another club, which is where I've been for the last 13 years. It'll be my 14th year coming up. So I took those programs into there as well, and have been trying to shift that paradigm over for the last 13, 14 years to get people to realize you can't. I'm steering. I don't even like the word quick fix, tip. I don't use the word tip in any of the articles that I write or anything that I post. I just, they're Band-Aids, and the industry sold Band-Aids for a very, very long time. And it's just not the way to go for people. It takes a little bit longer time for people to get better, and they have to understand that going in. And by no means am I slow playing anybody, when we're doing coaching. I'm sure that's happened in the past where guys tried to sell their 5-pack, packages of lessons 3 or 4 times. So that's why I just came up with a 5 or 6 month program, or a 3-month program if you weren't fully committed, or maybe you're at a higher level and you don't need as much time with the coach. If you're a 2 or 3 handicap, you want a sort of a tune-up thing. At 3 months, 6 hours, it's pretty good. See me every other week, just to make sure that you're on the right track. And you sort of got March, April, May, and then you're into the more of the competitive season here. So that's worked in the past for sure. And then I've spoke to a few PGAs around the world, PGA of Australia, a couple of times, and our PGA of Ontario, and I've spoken in the chapter, Michigan chapter of PGA of America, on some of these coaching programs and how to sort of convert and not be afraid. I just went cold turkey, so I just flipped right over and stopped teaching 3-packs and 5-packs the next year. I said, I'm not doing this anymore at all. And that's a bit risky. You could lose some clients.
It is. It's a brave move.
You can lose some clients, but it worked out, and it's been snowballing all the way through. So, and I'm one of those coaches that sort of my motto is I try and coach myself out of a student. So I think if you're unless you have like really high long-term goals, like I want to play on the PGA Tour, or I want a college scholarship, those 2 particular ones, or LPGA Tour, or whatever it may be, those are the highest levels you're going to get to, is either college and then professional. So if you're with me sort of more than 2 years, we're and you're not getting anywhere, then I'm failing. So I had one student this year who took the 3-month program, and he was a 15, and we got him down to a 9 in 6 hours. So 6 hours of coaching. So we made significant change in those 6 hours, and that was over the course of 3 months. So they can get better faster if they have the right concepts and the right direction and the right practice habits. So that's sort of how I treat everything now. It's individual. What does that person want? What are their goals? And then how do we sort of, reach or attain those goals based on what limited time that they have? Because there are people working, they have full-time jobs and families. Golf is not their entire life like some of those other people will be doing, college scholarships and and
golf's more important than all those things, mate. Come on.
Oh yeah, I agree. But they don't have 10 or 12 hours a day or even 6 or 7 hours a day to sort of practice, right? Which is
so just quickly on that, I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on how much of an impact the student actually has on that progress. So you said that if you can't see them, if you don't get the improvement that they want in say 12 months to 2 years worth of coaching, you've failed as a coach. But how much of an impact does the actual student have on that improvement?
Well, I make sure that all my students have accountability. So it's very easy to blame the coach and blame someone else on your not getting any better, or your lack of improvement. But really, the student is the ultimate person that is doing the work. And if they're not going to do the work, well, it's very simple. You're not going to get better. So I make sure that they all have practice plans. The practice plans change as they get better. I change them. And I say, hey, wow, you're getting pretty good at that, bump and run shot. Like, okay, I think we will just take that off. And if it's on there 3 times a week to do, maybe we'll just take it down to 1 time a week. And we'll put something else in there that you're not as good at. So they work on, well, first of all, I identify all their weaknesses, and then they get to practice all their weaknesses, and they practice their strengths less because they're already good at those. So they're going to get minutely better at their strengths, on a decimal point percentage, even if they practice them. But their weaknesses are still going to suck. And because they hate practicing them because they're not good at them, then they're going to stay the same. They're not going to get any better. So we find out that, hey, you can't hit, plug lie bunker shots. So guess what? That's on your practice plan 3 times a week, right? You can't hit uphill bunker shots. Perfect. Uphill bunker shots. Guess what? That's also on your plan 3 times a week. So, and we'll put them in random spots too. Sometimes hit out of divots, around the chipping green, all that kind of stuff. But no one likes to practice something they're not good at because they don't feel great about themselves. So we have to make sure that they build those weaknesses up to sort of an average, and then average to strength, and then strength to, like, if we can get it to tour status, that would be awesome. But because we have all the tour stats, I hate comparing to tour stats with amateur golfers, but it gives them sort of a baseline of, hey, like, this is, from 30 feet, it's, a 4% make. So why do you think at 30 feet that you should be 30 or 40%?
I think that's important to stress that golfers should be practicing their weak areas, but also they're going to be much more excited about their golf game if they see a 2 or 3% improvement in an area that's weak, as opposed to, as you said, a 0.2% change to a strength. So if they can see that bigger improvement, that's certainly going to make them more keen to come back and practice more.
Yeah, most definitely. So the 15 that went to a 9, he gained 30 yards on his drive, and we attacked his putting because his lag putting wasn't very good and his stroke was a bit erratic, and a little bit of chipping. But basically it was those three skills that we worked on. And then he practiced quite a bit and played quite a bit, as much as he could. And knocked it down to the 9 in 3 months.
Which is really cool. Exciting for player and coach, I'm sure, as well. So that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. So, and then he had to obviously put the work into.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm intrigued by this coaching program idea. I think it's a great way to go about your coaching. I think there's more and more coaches doing it these days. But what advice would you have for someone who's recently graduated, sees possibly some older pros that are still doing the buy 3 get 4 golf coaching sessions packages, that type of stuff, at their club, but he wants to get into coaching programs? How does he sell that idea to his potential clients? How does he get that into his club?
Well, here's the first thing. If you're young and breaking into the field, or breaking into the market, you're not going to be charging as much as your head pro or your associate pro. You're an assistant, so you're going to have to be at a lower price. So make sure that your price is reasonable. And obviously there's some percentages that you have to kick back to the club. I don't know if all of, everybody has to do that around the world, but we do here. It's on a 20 or 30%.
You certainly do. Yeah, certainly do here as well.
Yeah. So you have to factor that in. So I simply factor in what I think I would like to take home mathematically and say, okay, let's just use $100 a month as an example. If you say, okay, well, I'm going to give 2 half-hour lessons at $100 a month, and you're going to lose 20%. You're going to figure out what you're taking home, what your net is after your 20%. But it's basically $50 a half an hour session. So where is that in the price point of the club that you're at, or the area that you're at, for all assistants? It's probably a little bit higher than that, I would think. I don't know what it is over there, but it's definitely a bit higher here. It's probably around 75 here for assistants and they do about 45 minutes. So knock your 20% off, or 30, or whatever the rate is for the club that is charging a facility fee, and make sure that is what you want to do. And then you just decide how much you think you're worth based on either your experience or your certifications, or who have you worked under, or who have you worked with, or how much have you studied. What is everyone's PGA, or business schools and all those things are different around the world. So I would say get some experience. If you can, go shadow people. If there's people that you want to shadow and they're online, then go and see what they're doing online. There's a lot of people that do put their information out there in regards to how they teach, and have some live lessons on there. And I do those in some of the coaching workshops that I did. But I don't really put too much out on social media in regards to how I teach, or do the tips and this is how you generalize stuff for the masses, because no one's going to come see me if they can find everything online for free. That's just sort of my philosophy.
Fair point.
But I don't need to go see him.
I would tend to agree with that.
I'll wait for the next video. I don't need to go to see him, even if he's right around the corner. So, I think we shoot ourselves.
I think from a coaching, sorry, Jason, but I think from a coaching perspective, if you're a young coach coming out and you want to go and see someone, but you aren't sure whether you are keen to actually drive 10 hours, for example, to go and see that person, if you can get a bit of a sense of what they do and how they do it from their online stuff, that'll certainly, it could help you sell that 10-hour drive, I think. So that's probably a good way to get a bit of a sense of how guys go about it, by checking their online content.
Yeah, definitely. There's and some of the, if you're looking for an elite coach or someone who's very seasoned, a lot of them are very open to coming in shadow, as long as you clear it, that coach clears it with their student that's going to be on that particular day that they like to be in town, or whatever it is. And 10 hours is, it's not really that far, actually. Going to stay over one
for
night.
a place like Canada or a place like Australia, 10 hours is just a country drive, isn't it?
Yeah, right. So, well, that got me almost to South Carolina. It's about 15 hours to South Carolina. Could go down there, North Carolina. But yeah, I know it. Sometimes it's worth the drive, right? Just you might not get all of the stuff that's going on in a particular session, or how that coach is interacting with them, sort of off camera. That part's fairly crucial as well. Like, are they joking around? In between, when you're on camera, you're sort of you got to be on, right? And you're trying to. It might not be. You might not see all the fun stuff that's happening, right? They're just showing you bits and pieces of what's happening in that session, because you can edit and clip things.
No, that's
so. That's I think a lot of those elite coaches are still open to that. Say, yeah, I don't mind you coming in. Some coaches charge for it, some don't. I've heard up to around $500 a day for some coaches to hang out.
Okay.
But
I've always found the coaches in Australia are really approachable. The elite coaches are certainly open to trainees and people coming just out of their time to actually come and watch them coach. I've always approached some fairly big name coaches and they've always been open to it, which is a pretty cool thing, I think.
Yeah, and they're making the effort. They're showing initiative, and that's a good thing. Versus someone who's not doing anything. There's a lot of assistants that don't like to teach. They just prefer the pro shop sort of weekly paycheck and want to play, or maybe have aspirations to, play or win all of the section events or, the provincial events or whatever's going on in that particular area. So that, if they're younger, that's sort of where they're at. I was there too, and then they migrate and they go, I think I could make more money teaching. Right. So that's why if they
and do it heaps easier as well.
Yeah. So if you're working 12 hours a week and you're making $100 per hour, it's not rocket science, so that it's an extra $1,200 in your pocket minus whatever percentage that you have to give back to the club. So,
yeah.
And it's only 12 hours.
You spoke earlier about coaching. You spoke earlier about coaching tour players, and you've kind of shifted a bit away from that these days and heading more down that junior type coaching pathway. Can you talk through some of the changes that your coaching that you've done to step towards those junior programs?
Well, actually, a lot of the juniors have come to me. So I wasn't actually out there seeking the juniors. They seem to have migrated to me, and that's a good thing. I love coaching the kids. They're awesome. They're so much fun, and they work hard. They practice hard. They're the parents that I have. I also find myself coaching some of the parents. So I've had a few parents that have been, we'll call them overbearing, and they want the best. They want the best for their kids, which is fine, but there's a certain way they need to go about that. So some coaches wouldn't do that. They wouldn't, sort of take the reins and say, okay, I'm going to help this parent or dad or mom or whoever it is relax a little bit and I make sure I steer them in the right direction. So I don't have a lot of parents on my coaching team. I have some. I don't mind it as long as they sort of don't speak out of turn or are like, creating anxiety for the junior that's trying to learn. So if they do say something, I just will turn around and say, okay, come with me. And I'll say, you can't say that. I'll just tell them straight up and be like, why can't I say that? And I was like, because this is this and this and this. And they go, oh, okay. I didn't even think about that. So, the parent is obviously the authoritative figure at home, and kids don't want to do any wrong, and they're trying to please them as much as possible. So if they think that mom or dad is upset with them, that's where the anxiety starts to set in, because now they're worried about failing and not performing well enough for mom and dad. So I make sure I I coach that parent as well, and pull them aside, and I pulled many aside to let them know exactly what they need to do as a golf parent or a sport parent of the athlete. So that has hopefully helped, and they've all actually thanked me and said, thank you very much for stepping in and letting me know that I didn't know, because some of the parents don't play golf, so they've not been in certain situations. They don't understand what it is to miss a putt or miss a chip, or they obviously know score wise, but they don't know, like, the child is looking up at the parent immediately after they miss a putt and looking for the facial reaction or the body language, and they know what's happening. They know if they're happy or if they're upset or they're disappointed, and I make sure that some of those parents do not live vicariously through their child. So which has happened many times with lots of parents in other sports, hockey as well. So that's one of the ways that I sort of go about things when I'm coaching the kids, and they've, like I said, they've migrated to me to work one-on-one because they've been in other programs that just haven't worked out, or they didn't get better fast enough because they didn't have the right stuff, or a lot of these there's other coaches that don't coach technique, which I remember seeing a quote from Brian Menzel, I think last week on Facebook or something, that says, if you don't coach technique, someone else will. Well, guess what? They are coming to a lot of them are coming to see me for some technical issues or, direction to make themselves better. So,
okay. So talk me through like a standard junior program that you set up for say a 20 handicap kid that turns up. He's a 12-year-old player. He wants to play college golf. What type of program would you build for that kind of player?
How old is he again?
12.
12? Okay. So obviously I'm going to discuss this with the parents. I have a formal meeting with them. I sit down with the parents. We discuss everything. They figure out, if the junior is really going to be committed. They're talking it over at the table with me, in front of me, making sure, oh yeah, I'm committed. I'm going to practice. You're going to practice? Yes, we're going to practice. Okay, good. Okay. So then we're deciding on the programs. I have several options. I have 6 and 9 month programs that are 6 and 5 hours a month. And then I have 8 hours a month. And then I have unlimited coaching for the collegiate program, which is 12 months long, and they can come as often as they want. That's which is sort of within reason. I will manage that. So if I think there's overcoaching going on, I'll make sure that, like I don't think they should come two times a day, 7 days a week. That's ridiculous, right? So
crazy.
Yeah. So in the morning and at night, like they're not going to come that much. But if they want to come 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's great. If they want to come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, no problem. And they're going to spend, a few hours with me each day, not an issue. So that they will go through their practice routines, and we'll make sure that we're grinding things out through block practice or randomized practice, and also playing on the course. I do lots of on-course coaching. So that part's
great. Sounds good.
I do actually more on-course coaching than I probably do the block practice, range practice stuff. Because if they're already learning, okay, he's a 20, but, like you said, but we're going to, go through, ball striking and short game and chipping and putting and bunker and do all that skill acquisition. But I like to do some of that on the course as well, so that we don't have to try and transfer it to the course. Because if we're doing it on the course, we're already getting a result, right? So it's either going to be good or bad, maybe mediocre, but it's critical that kids learn on the course and they build some confidence and, hey, I can do it out here, so that if we're already doing it on the course, we don't have to transfer. There's no transfer training. We're already doing it. So
Yep.
I mean, how many good range players are out in the world? Lots, right? And they can't do it on the course for whatever reason, anxiety and performance, and they want to score, and those sort of things, mental things get in the way, mental blocks. So the more we do it on the course, the more confidence they build, the more they think they can do it, and they can. So over the course of time, there are 6-9 months, 8 hours a month, which is I do in a 9-month program, and then 12 months a year unlimited coaching. So all depends on where they're geared and how committed they are, and obviously financially what works for that particular family. So
that makes sense. It's interesting you bring up the block versus random practice. It was a bit of a Twitter chat, so to speak, going on.
I did see that
at the moment. So obviously this podcast won't come out until next year, but based on previous Twitter wars, it may still be going by the time this podcast comes out. So we'll see how it goes.
Listen, all those forms of practice have a place, and it depends really on the individual and their, practice habits. If they work hard, if they're not a hard worker, what are their goals? Do they want to be a tour player? Do they want to get a college scholarship? Are they really willing? Some people get things quickly, or they get things too easy, and they feel they don't have to work as hard. Be like, oh no, I'm good at that already. I don't need to work at that. Oh, okay. But you actually do. So that's why it's in your practice
yes,
plan.
you do.
You don't own it yet. Or I'll call them out and I'll be like, oh, you own that? Okay, let's see it right now. Right? Or have you ever done the, call the shot from the top of the swing? So I do that to them. Okay, if you got a high draw, let's see it. Okay, and I'll say, I'm going to randomly call high fade, high draw, low fade from the top of the swing. Let's, when you get up to the top, I'll decide which one it's going to be. And then they'll be like, okay, I can do it. So, and obviously it's not 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds, but a little bit older, 13, 12, they can do it pretty close. Well, they know path and face control. So
that's a good coaching strategy. Now, I could talk to you for hours, Jason. We are coming to the end of our time together, so I have got a fast 4 series of questions that I'd like to ask everybody. Sure. So we'll go through those, and we'll probably aim to get you on again at some stage as well to maybe expand on your junior coaching ideas and stuff like that. I think that'd be really, really cool topic to explore a bit deeper. But you've probably answered the first question out pretty well. But we'll just, if you've got anything else to add. So advice for coaches starting out in golf coaching. What's probably the best piece of advice you can give someone starting out?
Make sure you keep educating yourself. Don't think that when you first start out here that you know everything.
Don't copy Mike Fay. Don't copy Mike Fay.
Oh, I don't even know. I didn't even hear his, but obviously he's a smart guy. Stay educated. That part's important. Keep up your continuing education. Don't think that, what I think, I have this quote in my presentations. If you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So that's sort of a model that I sort of live by, and be open to all the information that's out there. There's all kinds of systems out there that may or may not work with some people. I do a full mobility screen with all of my players, all students, doesn't matter what level they're at, right away in first session. So I find out their limitations right away. I would say find someone who's a good, strength and conditioning coach, an athletic trainer. I have a really good one. She's awesome, Michelle Liu. So, find somebody that you can work with and team up with if you're not well versed in biomechanics or, anatomy and physiology and all those things. And then partner up with that particular person. And then I work back and forth with her, with students all the time. So I'm well versed in biomechanics, but it's better. There's some limitations that have to be fixed first before you can actually make movement pattern changes. So we fix those first.
Yeah, so obviously keep up your training as a coach. You're always going to be learning new things, and setting up relationships with experts outside your field can certainly be a powerful tool as well.
Definitely.
Great advice, really good advice. So how about advice for golfers out there? What would be the best piece of advice for the average player out there?
Stop watching all the instruction stuff online. How about that? And thinking that's going to work for you the next day. What happens is people, I think, I'm not going to say all of it's, but when it's all generalized and you don't know what your limitations are because you haven't been screened and you're trying all this stuff and then you injure yourself, or you say, oh, no, that thing didn't work. Tried to turn my hips and, and okay, now I'm going to try this and I'm going to try and work on my angle of attack. And no, that didn't work either. So you're trying all these things that are online, and then none of them may pertain to you, but you think that they do. And then you've tried 6 or 7 different things and now really messed yourself up. So I think do your due diligence, find a good golf coach. There's plenty out there in every area. I get a lot of people that say, I just want to, I want to work with you, but I want to see, how we jive and, how we vibe and see if we can, work together. Because I've been with some other people before and it didn't work out that great. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Come on over, try it out. So you're going to get that as a coach as well, that, there's certain type of interactions that you need to have. And I'm a very open, particular person where I adapt myself to the student versus them having to try and adapt to me. So I will adapt my coaching and the way I deliver information to that particular individual based on what they do for a living, if they're a critical thinker, if they're pretty laid back, all of those things. So I find out in the first part of the interview, I can identify now what kind of person I'm dealing with, and if they're going to be a tinkerer. So how much information are we going to give that particular person? So those types of athletes or golfers just need to be wary of how much information they take in and how much they try. And I think that a lot of people get caught up in trying all the quick fixed, Band-Aid tip stuff. And if they could steer clear of that and just work with someone on a long-term basis, whether it's a 3 or 5 month program, they'd be further off down the road and they'll build their skill acquisition much better.
Awesome. That's great advice again. So certainly out there for all the golfers out there listening, certainly take that on board. So with regards to your career, you're obviously a very successful coach and have been around for a long time out there doing it and doing it well. Is there anything that you would change in your pathway or the steps that you took to get to where you are now?
I'd like to say yes, but probably not really. I mean,
that's a valid answer.
I sought out a professional golf management program. I had great coaches. I had great teachers that taught me how to teach and interact with people. So Charlie King is one of them. He's the co-director of instruction at the Rick Smith Golf Academy at Doral. He was at Reynolds Plantation. I have Brad Turner, who is now the director at Bishopsgate in Orlando, which is sort of a high performance program for juniors where they go annually or 8 months out of the year kind of a thing. And he was a short game guru, short game wizard. Never won any money off him when I was in college. We used to try, but he was just really good. So those two coaches were great. I had another one, Carl Orbito, who was more of a technical coach, and I had some sports psychologists that were awesome. Lance Percy was that particular doctor, and learned lots of stuff about sports psychology. And I remember asking, I went out and played 9 holes one time at this course that was like absolutely brutally hard. 8 out of the first 9 holes is OB and left and right. The only The only hole that wasn't was the first hole, and it had a water hazard on the right. So it was all houses in Florida. So I said, I shot 36 and there was no pins on the greens. I said, I have no idea how I did that. And I used to play that golf course terrible. I would shoot 42 all the time in the front nine. And I said, and you should be saying, hey, why did they take the pins out? Well, the kids in that particular neighborhood decided to light the flags on fire. So they took all the flags out at 4:30 or 5 o'clock at night. So the kids, couldn't steal the flags and light them on fire. Not all the flags, but they would do one or two of them. So I remember I hit one to a foot on the 8th hole, and this is 1993. And I was like, wow, I hit it to a foot. I didn't even know where the pin was. So I was just aiming for the green. And I hit 7 out of the 9 greens and got up and down once I found out where the hole was. But anyways, that was interesting. And, he explained to me, obviously you're target oriented when you play, and we always try and get close to the pin because that's where the hole is, right? So when I started shooting at the middle of the greens, I did much better because my opportunities went up and I didn't miss the greens.
Yeah.
But, so great coaching as I grew up, and great mentors, and that helped quite a bit.
No, that's cool. As I said, that's a completely valid answer that you wouldn't change anything. You've obviously the steps you've taken has got you to the place you are now. So that's completely valid answer. Mm-hmm. So final question before we let you go. Where do you see yourself or golf in the next 5 to 10 years? Now, you can answer it as you can answer just for yourself or just for golf, or you can answer both if you like.
Where do I see myself in my field for 5 years? 5 years, still coaching. 10 years, maybe retired. I don't know. I've just turned the big 50. So I haven't forecasted that quite a bit yet. So, but no, I really love coaching every day. I just opened a new studio here, as you know, in Toronto, and have been in and out of there. I'm there 6 days a week still in the wintertime, and it's only going to get busier as we get into January because everyone's getting their new clubs. For Christmas, they'll have all their new equipment and stuff. So they'll want to try it out in January, February, March, and then getting ready for the golf season, hopefully April or first part of May here. So 10 years, I don't know. I guess maybe still coaching, and then definitely 5 years, I'll still be coaching juniors. I'm still coaching lots of the juniors, still at the club as well. And, facilitating people getting better at the member level or amateur level. And I still teach some elite players and some tour players online and in person. So that's fun. And I don't mind traveling. And as you know, I enjoy playing golf every once in a while.
For those that haven't heard us speak before, that's our standard joke with Jason. He plays on average 400 rounds per year, so he's out there every day at least playing 18 holes. So that's our standard joke. So where can people find you if they're trying to hunt you down, Jason?
I'm on all the social platforms pretty much. It's at Jason Helman Golf. That's JASONHELMAN GOLF, and that's Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all of those social platforms. So that they should find me there. Google me. My website's jasonhelmangolf.com.
So certainly jump on there and give Jason a follow. It's there's some pretty cool stuff out there, and there's always some interesting conversations coming out of those social media platforms. So thank you so much for your time today, Jason. I really appreciate it. It's been great to have a chat. As I said, we could talk for hours, I think, with you, and I'll certainly look to get you back on at some stage to possibly dive a bit deeper into your theories and also into your junior coaching program. But that was great fun. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thanks for having me on, Brent. Appreciate it.